and welcome to TRC Talks. I'm Casey Novak, Marketing Director at TRC and your host. Close coordination when planning the electrical and civil design components of a renewable energy project is critical to development success. Working with a collaborative team can streamline approval processes and ensure optimum constructability. To discuss how our integrated renewables team collaborates to advance projects faster and more efficiently, I have with me Bree Tylock, Supervisor of Renewables Engineering, and Tom Daniels, Senior Civil Engineer. So let's get started. Tom, from your perspective, working on civil, site design, and permitting for renewables projects, what is the benefit of working hand in hand with Bree and the electrical team?
So the benefit is when we consider our one TRC process and we have all this in-house. We can work dynamically together to streamline the process and account for the various site constraints that'll impact your project. Our teams are multidisciplinary, they're dynamic, and they're used to working together. So we can handle multiple revisions, an iterative array layout or site layout, and deal with a challenging site in a way that moves things along a lot quicker.
Okay. And Bree, how does an integrated approach help you as an electrical engineer?
So on a renewable site like solar, a complex site, particularly in the Northeast, is not uncommon at all. Working with a site like that is kind of like a puzzle. And so trying to fit in the modules without encroaching on the wetlands or exceeding permit costs is really a trick. And so working with civil and working with environmental and having that one TRC approach can really include a lot of knowledge bases, which makes all of us successful in the end.
So could you both briefly talk about this integrated approach in action in the context of a recent project example, maybe? Bree, you go first.
So Tom and I were actually working on a project not that long ago together. It was a 20 megawatt solar site. And we did a lot of back and forth on this site. You know, I worked on the design initially, preliminary layout, sent it to him to place roads and determine whether or not I was encroaching on wetlands. And then he would send it back to me to worry about shading. Just the back and forth internally without having to finesse things to send it out to someone like external outside of TRC just helps speed up the process, and keeping it internal allowed for a lot more honest conversation back and forth between the two groups.
Yeah, and on that site particularly, it was challenging because, you know, what's important from a natural resources standpoint, or what comes into play for a stormwater standpoint, or ARCI and RTE species, we have those experts who can be pinged often and frequently to make sure that the progress is considering those things as the design develops. So, you know, what might be great for the array isn't great because we can't cut in this wetland or this special buffer area. So, you know, those nuances and, you know, the very specifics can be applied throughout the design and not just at the end once we get the first pass of the array.
And in your experiences, what would each of you highlight as key benefits to project developers of a collaborative team? Tom, you go first this time.
Sure. So I think the key benefit is we don't cut the client out. We just help streamline it internally before they're brought in. So, you know, instead of getting, you know, their draft layout that doesn't have the advantage of, you know, having natural resources consultation or a stormwater engineer look at it, or the civil engineer identify the site constraints, we flesh that out before and then bring it to them with all those things considered, which then allows them to look at the fine details as it applies to their approach and kind of focus on what's important. You know, we're the experts in that matter, and they can be the expert in their site.
We also, because we're located within the same company, we are able to use the same software. So there aren't any confusion when I send something to Tom. Everything's to scale. He knows exactly what he's getting. So nothing gets lost in translation. I think that really benefits the customer as well as ourselves within TRC to make sure that we're giving the best product possible to the client in a timely manner.
Thank you both for your insights and commitment to advancing renewable energy development. And thank you, viewers, for joining TRC Talks.